Hey guys, welcome back to another recorded video youth message. And we're going to continue our series on fearless faith today. It's our last day. It was only a 2-week series. But last week we sort of started talking about a guy named Joshua who was going to start taking over for Moses with the Israelites that were taken out of captivity in Egypt, crossed the Red Sea as it parted, and went into the wilderness and wandered for about 40 years. And then they came to this place that was the promised land that God promised them. It was flowing with milk and honey, yet it was already inhabited by giants, by people that were scary, and they all were like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? We're so fearful. We'd rather be back in Egypt as slaves than taking this new land that God has promised us. And Joshua rose up and said, whoa, wait a minute. This is God's promise, so we need to fearlessly go after what he has promised us. And we're going to pick up our talk today a little bit more about Joshua. We're going to actually be in the book of Joshua chapter 2, but it's going to kind of be centered around someone different. This person we're going to be talking about tonight is a woman named Rahab, and it's going to be really interesting why Rahab is part of this story. You can actually, if you read the genealogy of Jesus in Matthew 1, you'll see that Rahab is actually mentioned specifically, and it's kind of peculiar for a couple of reasons, and we'll show you why, but ultimately why she was deemed someone who had fearless faith. So we're going to pick up in Joshua chapter 2, verse 1. It says, Then Joshua secretly sent out 2 spies from the Israelite camp at Acacia Grove. He instructed them, scout out the land on the other side of the Jordan River, especially around Jericho. So the 2 men set out and came to the house of a prostitute named Rahab and stayed there that night. But someone told the king of Jericho, Some Israelites have come here tonight to spy out the land. So the king of Jericho sent orders to Rahab, Bring out the men who have come into your house, for they have come here to spy out the whole land. Okay. First things first. Rahab. And I know it may seem a little crazy, a little shady, but yes, it was a prostitute named Rahab who we're going to kind of be centering the story around today. Something doesn't feel right about that, right? But she, and we're going to find out why, she knew something was going on here with these 2 spies, and that she had a part to play. And she took these spies in to her house to hide them. And we're going to read about that in just a moment. So obviously these spies weren't, very, James Bond 007 or Jason Bourne, stealthy, right? Obviously someone found out, told the king, and the king knew where they were or where he thought they were and went straight to Rahab. So we pick up in verse 4. Rahab had hidden the 2 men, but she replied, Yes, the men were here earlier, but I didn't know where they were from. They left the town at dusk as the gates were about to close. I don't know where they went. If you hurry, you can probably catch up with them. Actually, she had taken them up to the roof and hidden them beneath bundles of flax she had laid out. So the king's men went looking for the spies along the road leading to the shallow crossing of the Jordan River. As soon as the king's men had left, the gate of Jericho was shut. Wow. So not only did Rahab accept these guys into her home, she then, as the king was coming to her house to say, Give me these spies, she goes, I don't know where they were. They came, but they left. All while she sent them up to the roof to hide. And for some reason, she says, you know what, I need to hide them because this is important. And we're about to find out why she knew they were important. But wow, so we have this prostitute named Rahab, we have spies, we have lies. Like, oh my goodness, this is pretty crazy. And we're going to see how it resolves. In Hebrews chapter 11, verse 31, look what it says about Rahab. It was by faith that Rahab the prostitute was not destroyed with the people in her city who refused to obey God, for she had given a friendly welcome to the spies. See, Rahab actually had fearless faith. And wow, like, that is so crazy to think about because she wasn't an Israelite. And she probably hadn't heard of God. Who knows, right? But we're about to see kind of a special revelation that was given to Rahab. So, continuing on, verse 8. Before the spies went to sleep that night, Rahab went up to the roof to talk with them. I know the Lord has given you this land, she told them. We are all afraid of you. Everyone in the land is living in terror. For we have heard how the Lord made a dry path for you through the Red Sea when you left Egypt. And we know what you did to Sihon and Og, the two Amorite kings east of the Jordan River, whose people you completely destroyed. No wonder our hearts have melted in fear. No one has the courage to fight after hearing such things. For the Lord your God is the supreme God of the heavens above and the earth below. Wow. So the reason why Rahab took these guys in and hid them, and really at great personal cost, because she could have been killed by the king for hiding these spies. It was treason, right? They all heard of the stories of the Israelites leaving Egypt, being brought out of the land, crossing the Red Sea, destroying the Amorites. Like, everything that God has been doing for the Israelites up to this date, they had heard in Jericho. And Rahab was like, we are terrified. We have a fear of your God. And this isn't like afraid fear. Like, this is more of a fear in awe. Like, wow, your God is powerful. He is the God of the heavens and the earth. And she knew that she had a part to play in this story. And she did what she could, which was house these spies. Because she knew if God could do all this for these Israelites, then they didn't stand a chance. And she wanted to be on the right side of history. So, fearless faith is rooted in a healthy fear of God. And it leads to action. So again, this isn't the type of fear that we're afraid of God and like, oh my goodness, what's going to do? Oh no, what's going to do? Oh no. No, this is a fear as in that having an awe, a wonder of the power of God, of the greatness of who God is and what he can do in and through us in our lives and for us in our lives. And this is such a wonderful thing to be able to have. Listen to some of the things it says in the book of Proverbs about a fear of the Lord. Proverbs 1:7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. Proverbs 16:6. By steadfast love and faithfulness, iniquity is atoned for, and by the fear of the Lord one turns away from evil. Proverbs 19:23. The fear of the Lord leads to life, and whoever has it rests satisfied. He will not be visited by harm. So a fearless faith is rooted in a fear and awe, a wonder of God. And that leads or should lead to action. For Rahab, this meant she feared God more than the earthly king of Jericho and what he could do to her. So she hid these spies in Jericho. And it literally saved her life. Joshua 6:25. So Joshua spared Rahab the prostitute and her relatives who were with her in the house because she had hidden the spies of Joshua sent to Jericho. And she lives among the Israelites to this day. In addition to this act of faith, Rahab is also remembered for something else. She is listed, like I said earlier, in the New Testament as the mother of Boaz, which makes her the great-great-grandmother of King David, which makes her an ancestor of Jesus. Wow, that is so powerful. So what does it mean for us today? Well, a couple of things. First thing, we need to develop a healthy fear of God. And again, that means an awe, a wonder at how great and powerful God is and what he can do in our lives and what he has done, what he is doing, what he will do. We need to have a healthy fear, awe, wonder of who God is. What comes into our minds when we think about God is the most important thing about us. That's a famous quote by author and theologian A.W. Tozer. So be sure to spend time with God. getting to know him. So the way we can create a good, healthy fear, awe, or wonder of God is by reading the scriptures, by getting into the word, by doing devotions and spending that quality time to get an intimacy to know who God truly is. Number 2, list out everything you're afraid of right now, because God, in his awesomeness, in his wonder, is bigger than any of our fears, than anything that we can be afraid of. Once you've figured out exactly what you're afraid of, you may realize that it's not something you even need to be worried about because of how awesome God is. But if your fear of this person or situation is still overwhelming you, then write this next to your fear. God is bigger than blank. Spiders. Heights. Rejection. Loneliness. He is bigger than all that. And then thirdly, lastly, ask the Lord what actions you need to take or what you can do in your life to continually seek after him and live out this fearless faith. You can start out by reading maybe Hebrews 11. This is very affectionately called the Hall of Faith in the Bible. Hebrews 11 is all about those in the Bible who lived out this extreme fearless faith in their lives. And we can take some examples of what they did and we can extrapolate it to see how we can live in our lives. So remember, fearless faith is rooted in a healthy fear and awe, a wonder of how great and good and just and loving that God is. And remember that he is totally, totally bigger than any fear that you can have. So pray and ask and seek him out to see how you can act on that fearless faith as we want to be able to live it out day in and day out in our lives. That's all we have for tonight. Next week, we're going to start a new series, and then we'll talk through what the rest of the summer is going to look like as well. I love you guys. Can't wait to be back with you soon. For Chewy, Franklin, Andrew, see ya.